So the movie opens up with a seemingly perfect American town. That was my attempt at Russian.
American. These are beautiful American town. We
beautiful American town in Ohio. And
we drink vodka and potatoes, just like all red-blooded Yankee.
The couple people from Russia who actually listen to us will be like, we don't sound like that at all.
Please forgive me. I am from Pittsburgh. We voted the most disgusting accent. I'm not able to do you well.
You're actually doing a pretty good job, John.
Oh, goody, goody, here it comes.
Welcome to the Cinema Psycho Show.
You are interested in the unknown, the mysterious, the unexplainable. That is why you are here.
Oh, my God, don't stop now!
With your hosts, Brian, John, and Elaine.
Welcome to the Cinema Psycho Show, the madhouse for film freaks and film fans of all types. I'm your host, Brian Kyneton, joined by fellow co-host and filmmaker, John Woolscroft.
Well, it was a Marvel movie.
Oh, really? You're going to lead right into that? You're not going to have some weird, like, goofy shit that you're going to say, like,
there's
right off
two
the
things
bat?
I do. Yeah, it's either complete nonsense or, like, a prelude of things to come, so...
A prelude of things to come. Oh my God. Well, we're talking about Marvel movies, and really there's only one Marvel movie out there, not talk about Marvel TV. Although we did talk about that on our special video version. But anyway.
Check that out, gang.
Yeah, check that out, gang. We'll talk a little bit about that after our little review here. But we're talking about, first on our episode 218. And this week we are going to be talking about the return of cinema for the Marvel folks with none other than Black Widow, a movie that should have come out last year, but unfortunately, I don't know, there was like that whole like killer virus thing and people didn't go to movie theaters, and Disney was like, well, we can't blow all of our Marvel money and on, Disney Plus, so let's just hold off a little bit. It'll get better.
Yeah.
Like they could have. Yeah, they could have done that. Actually, I think they probably should have. But yeah, Black Widow, a movie that, quite honestly, I think really should have come out, I don't know, maybe after Civil War. Just a concept there. Maybe.
Well, yeah.
Because I think timing is a problem with this film.
Oh, yeah. Well, first of all, like we were supposed to review this 16 months ago.
I know.
Thank you, pandemic. Yeah, I was on the schedule back then. I don't even know what we replaced it with when it was on the schedule, but probably our pandemic episode, actually.
I think it was Crushing Depression.
Yeah.
Impending Doom.
But Brian,
That's what we replaced it with.
You got to think about, like, yeah, of course it should have come out like right after Civil War, but they never wanted to make this movie. A movie about a broad? We can't sell toys to that. And then when all the pressure came in, they're like, well, all right, let's make it. And they went, oh, sir, we killed off Black Widow. What? Ah, damn it. Just make it earlier in the timeline, which for me just completely ruins it because not that I ever thought in a movie that, like this Black Widow was going to die anyways, but at the same time, like, there's no stakes here because I know she's going to be fine.
That's true. It's almost one of those things where like you could say the same argument about, say, all of the prequel movies for Star Wars. Like, you know what's going to happen. Clearly, the audience going into episode 1 knew exactly where you're going to end up at. A 50-year-old asthmatic in a black metal suit killing people. So it's more like, how does the little kid turn into that guy?
That's what I call pod racing.
Yeah. Enjoy your arms while you have them, and your skin, and breathing on your own. But anyway, like, that's the thing is with Black Widow being a prequel film, it's kind of weird because Black Widow's never really had, I don't think anyone's ever said, well, what happened with her between Civil War and, Infinity War. No one really asked that question. So it's almost like they're shoehorning in this story to shut up people.
Yeah.
Like that's what it felt like to me.
They never wanted to make this.
No. And it's unfortunate because I think Black Widow as a character, in the comic books at least, has a lot of depth. I mean, and has gone through a lot of tragedy and a lot of horror. And this movie does touch on it a little bit, not to the extremes that not Civil War, but Age of Ultron did. But it there's a lot there with this character, especially with one of two characters who quite literally has no real superpower. You know, no real superpower. I mean, Tony Stark is rich as all fuck. And you could argue that he doesn't have any superpowers either, but his intelligence is kind of his superpower, and his money.
His suit is like a superpower, kind of.
Yeah. But you know, you look at, you know, Ant-Man has his suit that shrinks him down. Hulk is, you know, has gamma radiation that's caused him to turn into a monster. There's Thor and all these other characters that on paper are actually pretty one-dimensional. If you think about it, if you really think about this, Space God comes down to Earth. That's kind of a one-dimensional person. But we've seen movies that have really fleshed those types of one-dimensional characters out. And I really feel like with Black Widow, you already had a pretty three-dimensional character in the comics, but they didn't even try to, at least up until this movie, try to really flesh the character out beyond just sexy lamp. Like,
yeah, kind of. Well,
really,
I think the problem is that, Brian, you keep saying that she's a multi-dimensional character in the comics. She was never, ever a multi-dimensional character.
I know that, and that's
movies.
The problem.
Yeah,
that's the problem. Is that this movie is it's basically trying to replace what with most of these Marvel films they've done over the course of, say, 3 films. You know, per character. Like you have Captain America has 3 films. I mean, Thor has 3 films, and those 3 films have all kind of fleshed.
Yeah.
What was that?
A 4th one coming out.
Yeah, he has a 4th one coming out.
He might be in the next Guardians movie too.
Yeah,
so
but the point is,
still wants that Marvel money.
And then on top of that, like Thor especially, I think if you're gonna say who has had probably the most character development outside of, say, Iron Man and Captain America, it's Thor. He's had the most, I would say. But it's unfortunate because, you know, there's a lot there with Natasha Romanoff that really has been left on the table. And this movie's trying to, like, jam all of this shit in, you know, 2.5 hours. And then at the end of it, it's like, well, she's dead. So, by the way, she's got blonde hair. This means she's going to die. So it's like, okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, wait, we started Infinity War with her with blonde hair, so make sure she's got a box of hair dye. Because, like, I couldn't just imagine that maybe in between the time after Civil War and before Infinity War that maybe she dyed her hair. I have to see it blonde, or I don't believe it.
Let's be honest here. They're playing to the lowest common denominator. They're not playing to the intelligent film audience member. They're playing to the, you know, I have to see that little thing there. It's like the Easter eggs. It's honestly that same clickbaity Easter egg shit. I literally was reading one beforehand that was all the Easter eggs that you find in Loki. And it's the same thing. It's the same type of clickbaity shit where now there's going to be an article and they're going to include, oh, the hair dye because she has blonde hair in Infinity War. And we have to have that. It's the same shit.
But this could have been called Easter Egg the movie. You know what I mean?
Easter Egg the movie.
How did Black Widow get her super cool vest? I don't give a shit. She just has a piece of clothing. Maybe she went to fucking Old Navy and got herself a vest. I honestly didn't even notice the vest. Yeah.
I honestly didn't even notice the vest. I didn't notice the importance of the vest aside from what it meant in the movie. Like, I honestly wasn't like, did she have a vest in Infinity War? Was that something that was important? Because I really didn't know. For me, it was more or less just like, okay, I've wanted to see what happens to this character for a while, aside from just seeing her ass and tits in superhero shots, which I gotta say, I love the fact that this movie did make fun of that. I love that part. That part especially, I thought that was great.
Well, it was twofold as far as I'm concerned, because like the movie very much cut down the gratuitous sexiness, but even though this movie is directed by a woman, there are a lot of shots that unnecessarily follow her ass as she's like sneaking around. And
Not
I thought
as much.
Well,
Not
I thought
as
this movie was directed by a guy, and then I looked it up after the fact. I'm like, this is directed by a woman? There's a lot of male gaze from this cinematographer.
Not as much. You compare this to, say, Iron Man 2. That, like, Iron Man 2 is nothing but male gaze the entire time.
Well, I'm talking more about the camera placement as compared to, like, the storytelling where, yeah, Tony Stark's like, I want one, you know?
Yeah. Like, that's, and I think that's part of the problem. That's part of the problem here, is just that Marvel with this particular character has really dug themselves a hole of treating this person as a side piece or a sex symbol without really thinking about there's more to this character. That's part of the problem, is you're literally starting at negative.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Brian, isn't the problem that her character's name is Black Widow? The whole point is that she's like a beautiful, you know, if you go by actual Black Widow spider, she's a beautiful temptress that lures men in or people in only to kill them. Like, that's the whole point is there's a lot of sexiness to that.
Yeah, and honestly, the comic book industry is guilty of doing that with multiple characters. You look at Elektra. you look at Elektra in every Daredevil novel, and she literally is not even wearing. I don't even think you can call that underwear. It's literally just like straps of cloth in her outfit. But it's the same sort of thing. I mean, these comic books were at the time, not really so much anymore. Actually, it's been more inclusive than anything. Written for men, and that was it.
Oh yeah. Here's how bad comics are, Brian. I'm going to challenge you real quick.
Okay.
I want you to name me 5 female superheroes that are not based on a variation of a male superhero.
That are not based on a variation of a male
like,
superhero.
for example, Batgirl.
Catwoman's not based on a male superhero.
Okay, I'll give that, yeah.
Poison Ivy is not based on a male superhero.
She's a villain.
Yeah. Yeah.
To avoid dead air, I'll help you a little. Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
I can't think of any after that.
I can't think of any after that. It's bad.
Because there's like She-Hulk and Batgirl and Batwoman, but they're all based off of existing characters. Yeah, it's... Oh, well, I mean, there's Wonder Woman.
I mean, even here's the thing. You can even say Captain Marvel was at one time... Actually, here's the thing. Captain Marvel is based off of male superhero.
Yeah. That
Marvel.
A little clunky. Yeah. So there's
Comics
Wonder Woman.
Are terrible.
It's Wonder Woman. That's it.
There you go.
Yeah.
It's horrible. It really is.
Why don't you like comics more, ladies?
They do, though. That's the thing.
Yeah.
It is. They do. But yeah, it's coming from a place of negative, in my opinion. You're already in the hole when it comes to this character, and I know this movie is trying to be a peace offering to that. How well that does is, I really think, what our kind of review is supposed to be about. Which I think we are going to spoil this, right? Did we say we're going to spoil this?
Oh yeah, in fairness, this has been out for maybe 12
weeks.
days or something. By the time this comes out, maybe 2 weeks. Yeah. So you probably saw it on Disney Plus, or you went to the Movieplex by this point if you're listening to it. So, But if you haven't, turn it off, go see it, but then come back to us.
Yeah.
Don't leave us hanging. So spoiler alerts from kind of here on out ish.
So with that said, my thoughts on the beginning part of this, because I like the beginning part.
Just it went on forever.
Yeah, it did. But I'm fine with that. I'm fine with it because it again gives us a little bit of backstory here. So the movie opens up with a seemingly perfect American town. That was my attempt at Russian.
American. These are beautiful American town.
Beautiful American town in Ohio. And
drink vodka and potatoes, just like old red-blooded Yankee.
the couple people from Russia who actually listen to us will be like, we don't sound like that at all.
Please forgive me. I am from Pittsburgh. We voted the most disgusting accent. I'm not able to do you well.
You're actually doing a pretty good job, John. But anyway, we see young Natasha Romanoff with her sister, Yelena, and we are introduced to kind of her parents. And I say parents, and I'm not, of course, it's a podcast, so you can't actually see me doing this, but air quotes, because they're not really her parents. It's David Harbour, also known as the Chief from Stranger Things.
Yeah, Mr. Stranger Things.
Mr. Stranger Things. And the Mummy's Rachel Weisz.
Oh, yeah, that's right. She's from The Mummy. I was actually just...
I mean, she's done a lot of stuff since The Mummy, and she's really a really great actress.
She was good in The Favorite, I remember. But yeah, I think of her as the chick from The Mummy.
I always am going to see her as the chick from The Mummy.
But... All right, by the way, she is only like, I'm going to look up as you start breaking this down a little bit more, and I have a second. I guarantee she's only like 5 years older than Scarlett Johansson, and she's supposed to be like her mother. All right, so yeah, break this down.
No, I think she's much older than Scarlett Johansson.
Oh, really? Really? Okay.
Yeah, she just looks really good. She just, she's married to James Bond.
I stand corrected. Daniel Craig?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think ScarJo is 35. She's 51. So
yeah.
She could have had a child at 16, I suppose.
Yeah, well, you got to figure, like, she was really young looking in 1999 when The Mummy came out. So you go figure. But
1999 was only 5 years ago, Brian. What are you talking about?
In what time machine were you in?
I'm so old.
But anyway, we're introduced to this American family, not really American family, and ultimately David Harbour, Alexei, is in essence basically, but he's working undercover as an American at a shield plant. We don't know that it's a shield plant yet, and ultimately his cover's blown. We don't know how his cover's blown, but it forces Alexei to kind of say, "Hey, we all got to evacuate. We got to get out of here now."
They're enemies of the state.
Yes. Yeah.
They're villains.
Yeah.
You know, I don't. And he's murdering Shield members, shooting them in the
were Hydra.
face.
They are Hydra. Keep that in mind. Yeah. He's shooting them in the face. But we're rooting for him for reasons.
and this drove me nuts because this whole scene, you know, which eventually leads to them getting away, and I'll let you get there, is that, you know, Natasha's holding a gun, and he's like so serious. He's like, "Give me the gun, put the gun down," and he's so like intense and thoughtful. I'm like, oh, this character's going to have a lot of layers. And the next time we see him in prison, he's a goddamn Looney Tunes character.
Yeah, he's kind of a cartoon character.
Yeah,
they kind of were like, "You're in Stranger Things, right? Go act like a cartoon character. It's fun." But. Yeah, so ultimately the family escapes on a plane. They've had a plane kind of in hiding, and they're running from SHIELD agents, really, Hydra, and they escape to Cuba. And at Cuba, we get introduced to professional bad guy and sometimes Beowulf, Ray Winstone.
I think his name
the only time that man has ever played a non-bad guy has been in fucking Beowulf.
He's got a bad guy face. Like in this movie, his name is Ivan von Bad Guy, right?
No, it's Dreykov. Dreykov.
I am Vodka von Bad Guy.
Yeah, our Russian audience is going to hate us after this.
Hey,
like, fuck the cinema psychos.
Russia, listen to the way I talk about the Irish, and I
it's
go
true.
Way easier on you.
You really do go deep into the Irish and how much you detest them, but love their alcohol.
I don't actually detest them. I just give them a hard time. Someday I'm going to go to Ireland and he'll be like, "Hey, are you the guys for the Cinema Psycho show?" And I'll be like, "Yeah," and he's going to break a pint glass over my head. Fuck you! I got a job, asshole.
And he does that after he drinks. But yeah, anyway, they escape to Cuba. Dreykov kind of debriefs them. This ultimately, what I forgot to mention was that Melina, Rachel Weisz's character, gets shot in the escape. And at this time, we really don't know too much about the dynamics of the characters. We would think that maybe this really is a family. That, you know, at least for me, I was watching this, I'm like, okay, yeah, maybe that is their mom and dad. But in actuality, they aren't. They actually are just orphans that were picked up by Dreykov, Natasha, and Yelena and put together in this fake family for the purposes of appearances.
Yeah, that messed me up because I was like, I didn't get that right away. And I was like, why the hell doesn't David Harbour care more about, like, the chick from The Mummy? Yeah, because, like, they're not really together at all.
Yeah, they're not really dating at all.
I'm sure they boned, but...
Oh, I mean, you have to keep appearances. You have to keep appearances. But ultimately, David Harbour's character, Alexei, he is a super soldier. He's actually one of the only Russian super soldiers created, named Red Guardian. And I gotta say, over the course of the film, even though he's presented as a cartoon character, I kind of like what they did with him, even though he's goofy, and even though because you got to figure, like, you were bred to be a superhero for the state, okay? You do all the things right, and you still end up on the shit end of the stick. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know. I just would like them to try something other than, like, silly, fun, paint by numbers, cookie cutter Marvel, you know?
But it is Marvel we're talking about here.
Because this opening sequence, after they, like, drug the girls and take them off, we get this, like, long opening title sequence where it's like, oh, the girls, like, even as little kids were, you know, involved in, like, you know, assassinations or in the backgrounds of coups and...
Yeah.
You know, overthrows of, you know, dictators and stuff, you know, and then we kind of see them getting older and turning into women. So it's like, oh, this is kind of like scary and kind of upsetting. Like these young ladies are now grown women and they are just thoughtless killing machines.
Yeah.
But then it's like, oh, no, I'm sorry. Back to Marvel, back to the funny jokes, you know.
And the problem is, though, if you want to call it a problem, I don't think it's a problem. I think it's more or less, this is what you expect from Marvel. You expect to have just the right amount of drama and right amount of stakes, but also just the right amount of humor. That's kind of that's what separates them, honestly, from the DC films. You know, like I was watching again Joker the other day. And I was out of town. I was in a hotel room, and Lauren had never seen Joker before. We were watching it in the hotel room, and I'm like. Yeah. And she's like, this is really good. I'm like, yeah. And the thing is it's a very different beast from what you'd see from Marvel.
Exactly. They took the leash off. They said, make the movie you want, you know?
Yeah. There have been people who said that they expected that movie to fail. But, I mean, it's
not really a comic book movie at all.
No. And
if the guy would call himself, like, Clown Face instead of the Joker, it's not a comic book movie at all. But, but I love that they took a chance. And, like, I think the whole problem with Black Widow is this is not the movie that they should have made.
I agree.
They should have made the origin movie, and they could have gone back and forth between her as a little girl and her as a grown woman in the whole process of her going through the Widow program. Because when she meets up, you know, and I don't mean to jump so far ahead.
No, you're cool.
But when she meets up with her sister and she's like, yeah, I've been deprogrammed, and now we should go kill what's-his-face.
Dreykov.
I didn't remember. Yeah, I didn't remember hearing his name at the beginning of the movie. So like, we should go kill Dreykov, and I'm sitting there in the theater in my pocket. I'm like, cool, who the fuck is Dreykov? Like,
see, I knew who Dreykov was because of the Avengers.
Okay, I forgot.
The scene, here's the thing. The scene, this is how they tied it in. This is exactly how they did it. And I kudos to Marvel for really knowing how to map their universe. Okay, I'll give them that. But Dreykov was always going to be the villain in this because of the fact that he was mentioned in the interrogation scene between Loki and Black Widow in the Avengers. When they're talking about the red in your ledger. Okay? And Loki actually says Dreykov's daughter. Which at the time we're like, what the fuck does that mean?
Am I supposed to remember that?
Yes. Yes, you are.
I didn't even give a shit about Black Widow when that movie came out. That was the first movie she was... No, she was in Iron Man 2.
Iron Man 2.
Yeah, but but I was like, how am I supposed to remember any of that? I mean, there's been 25 fucking movies.
This movie, I'm telling you, man, this movie, all of these movies are working on multiple levels. When film history is written about this whole period of time, it's here's the thing. A lot of people don't think that superhero movies are going to go on forever. They're not. That's not how it works. Okay?
Well, no, they'll ebb and flow. Eventually, the Marvel bubble will burst. I don't know when the fuck, because there's
no
35 TV shows. I'm like, give us more. But yeah, eventually it will burst, and then it'll be like 5 or 6 years.
Well, this is literally the same thing that happened with every popular film genre that comes through. Okay, there was a time period when the epic was the big thing. That was the big thing. You watched the epic. You watched, Lawrence of Arabia, or you Ben-Hur. Ben-Hur, and people were spending ungodly amounts on all these epics that were making shit tons of money, and then eventually that crashed, and eventually taste changed. That's why you had new wave cinema, and you had the rise of the indie film. So eventually, this period of time will come to an end when we're not really inundated with superhero films, and when they write the history about this, one of the things they will mention is just the fact that, god damn, they were working on multiple levels. On one level, absolutely, they're playing to the person who is not a Marvel person. And for that person, they're looking at action, they're looking at the stars themselves, they're looking at the humor, okay? On the other level, they're looking at the casual Marvel fan. The person who, maybe you saw the Avengers movies, and maybe you know kind of the basic, but you're not really following the TV shows. You don't really know why the hell Julia Louis-Dreyfus is in the film. At the end, spoiler, she shows up.
Yeah, I had to look that up on the internet. I left the theater.
But the point is that you get enough on that level. And then there's a third level. And for that third level, those are the people who quite literally will watch Black Widow after watching 50 hours of all of the Marvel films back to back, okay? That know all of the facts, that are the super fan. And there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. And throwing things in like that are mainly
whatever floats your boat. Yeah.
But it's mainly to appease them. They are smart as all hell. The only thing that they're dumb on, in my opinion, is that this movie didn't come out 5 years ago. That's the problem. Is that this movie is trying to make up for lost time. It should have come out right after Civil War.
Again, Brian, we are not going to make no movie about some broad.
And that's where they're being fucking dumb. That's where they're dumb. Is that they did not feel, and this is documented. There actually were, I think one of the first episodes we did, we were talking about this during a news segment where they actually said, it was, I forget where it was reported, but it was reported that the executives of Marvel actually believed that no one wants a Black Widow movie because men won't go to it.
Yeah, well,
that was the thinking back then.
They don't want it, and therefore they think every other man or woman or child doesn't want it either because their egos are that inflated.
I mean, there were little girls who were like, well, where's a Black Widow toy? I don't want Thor. I don't want Iron Man. I want Black Widow. And that's the problem here, is that, and this is something that they did with Star Wars, where they kind of were pushed into doing things, and it blew up in their faces. They weren't done for the right reasons. If you're just doing things for the sake of saying, hey, look, we got your Black Widow movie, now shut up and buy our toys and buy Disney Plus so you can watch all of our shows, that's not good. That's not good enough.
Obey the algorithm.
Yeah. So,
Brian, I remember with Jurassic Park, they made a toy of everybody in the movie, including like Dennis Nedry.
Yeah. Because we really needed to have that.
Well, guess which toy they didn't make? Lex, yeah, and she cried her eyes out when she went to the toy store because there's a Timmy action figure, but there's no Lex action figure. Yeah, they've always thought people won't play with girl toys. They don't want to see girl movies because apparently only guys buy things. I never understood that.
It's apparently only guys buy things, and apparently only guys play with action figures. And apparently only guys see comic book movies. And that's the problem, is that honestly, up until, I would say, 5 years ago, that was the prevailing wisdom. That was it. Make these movies for little boys, not really for little girls.
Yeah. Well, I grew up in a household. I'm sorry. I grew up in a household with a sister who was 3 years older, and her and I played with action figures, and we also, because I grew up in a very open-minded household, we also played with Barbies. And the thing is, you know what about with those toys? They were toys. So we played and made up stories. So there was no problem with me playing with Barbies. There's no problem with her playing with G.I. Joe or Ninja Turtles.
My
They're
little
fucking
girl,
toys.
My little girl, before I came up here to record, was dressed like Batman. And
awesome.
She wasn't asking me to call her Batgirl. She was saying, I'm Batman. And
you're raising her right, Brian.
Yeah. First of all, she has already seen the Keaton film, and she knows who the Joker is, and her and I like to play as the Joker. I have to be the Joker, and she's Batman. And she says she has gadgets on her gauntlets. But
that's adorable.
The point is that these characters are not gender specific. The stories are not gender specific. Anyone could be into Black Widow. Anyone could play with Barbies or G.I. Joe or any of these things. And this idea that you have to pigeonhole it and direct it to one specific audience and only make for that one specific audience, it cuts you off at the kneecaps creatively.
Yeah, because totally with the Avengers, the two characters I think that I relate with the most are Hawkeye and Black Widow.
Yeah.
Because they're actual people.
They're human beings.
Like, Tony Stark is a hyper genius narcissist. Like, Captain America is like a super soldier. Hulk is a goddamn monster. And Thor's not from this planet. Like, hey, at least these two I can kind of relate to because, they got to pay taxes and shit too.
Yeah. Yeah. But that's the problem. That is the problem. And that's what this movie tries to correct. I
think it fails horribly, though, at it.
I don't think it fails horribly. I feel this movie is 5 years too late.
Well, here's where I think it fails horribly.
Yeah.
It's more in the abstract than in, say, the narrative. Is the characters that I remember from this movie in order are Florence Pugh, Stranger Things.
Yeah, Strange. You just fucking call him Stranger Things. Well, he's either Red Guardian, or you could call him Hellboy, because he was also Hellboy.
Yeah, it's true. Hey, and here's a free plug for Marta. Marta on the Move. She actually interviewed him. If you want to go and see that, like I said, how the hell did you get him? And she said, patience. So, and then I think of Black Widow, but then shortly after that, I think of like her mom. So like,
Rachel Weisz,
how is Black Widow a supporting character in her own fucking movie?
You're right.
Yeah,
absolutely right. And I think that's a criticism that I have for this, is that a movie called Black Widow unfortunately doesn't really do much for Scarlett Johansson. It doesn't do much for Natasha Romanoff. It's almost like they're like, well, she's dead, so we have to introduce the new one, so give all the good lines to Florence Pugh. And
this reminds me of another Disney property, because it reminds me of like the new Star Wars movies, and like in Force Awakens, we really get to know who Rey is. Like, is it handled perfectly? No, but we get a sense of her, and then she ends up being on this great adventure. She's following the hero's journey, etc. Now, when you get to Rise of Skywalker, and let's not get focused on how horrible that movie is. But the thing is, her character development takes a backseat to the exploration for this and that and that and this, because we already know who she is. Yeah. But the problem is, and I know we already know who Black Widow is. I think Scarlett Johansson's been in 32 of these movies by now. But we should have been given a elaborate character development for Black Widow, even though we already know her. Instead of her just going, okay, we need to find this guy and this room, but then we need to get our dad. But then the dad's going to say we're going to need our mom, and then we're going to have to get the mom, and then we're going to have to wait for this. It just seemed like she was just there for the plot to happen.
She was there to fill in a line. I hate to say it.
Yeah.
But she was put in there because of Loki saying Dreykov's daughter. That's why.
But yeah,
that's why they did this. Is because there was a line of dialogue that was said in the movie, said in the Avengers, and had to be explained somehow.
But yeah, to get back to that though, like, because that was probably like 20 minutes ago now, but like, I was like, who is that guy? And they're like, oh, we have to stop him in the red room. I'm like, what the fuck's the red room? And they're like, I already killed him. I'm like, she did? And he's like, are you sure she killed him? I'm like, I'm pretty sure I blew him up. And I was like, oh, okay, when did that happen?
Well, they did explain that part.
Oh,
they did give a good flashback with, Hawkeye in the ear saying, okay, kill him. And ultimately, I mean, I don't think we need to go plot by plot point on this movie. No. But especially because we are like 34 minutes in already.
Well, just real quick, because this point needs to be made. Like,
sure.
We don't go plot point. But the thing is, like, Florence Pugh in the movie is she's all brainwashed and stuff, and she's fighting, and then the one character like throws like red jizz in her face, and then
throws red jizz.
And then she's like, oh, fuck, I'm a good guy now, and like it just destroys all of her brainwashing. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, if this guy has this elaborate, like in like Sky City that he controls maybe hundreds of thousands of women, and they're all brainwashed, and he does it all by a computer up there, and they can't hurt him, and he's done all these things. Why did he come up with an antidote for it?
Good question. That's a very good question.
Because the movie needed to happen?
Because the movie needed to happen. Yeah. That's exactly what it was. It's suspension of disbelief, John. Sometimes that has to be thrown in there. But you're absolutely right. They lead this towards the end where Dreykov is again alive, and he's not supposed to be alive. We're led to believe through most of the movie that Natasha Romanoff killed him, and that the Red Room no longer exists, but turns out
and his little girl, because that's kind of important.
And his little girl's not dead.
And meanwhile, anybody that is above the age of 10 and knows anything about movies, obviously the little girl's not dead, and that's the guy I shouldn't say guy, I should say person following her around and like kicking her ass throughout the whole movie.
Taskmaster.
Yeah, it's clearly the goddamn daughter, and the thing is, like, obviously, thank God she was alive so that she's not like the worst person ever. But I'm like, how am I supposed to feel anything for Black Widow if I know that she's been a trained Russian assassin, not to be jingoistic here, but Russian trained assassin who murdered a child? Like, yay, my hero. I mean, yeah, she's sad about it. Womp womp, whatever.
To be fair, Tony Stark did run a company that made weapons that killed like a bunch of kids.
Yeah, and then there was like 12 movies where he said, I fucked up.
I'm just saying, you want to pull some you want to split hairs here. I can split hairs. I'm not. Go ahead.
I've not been with Tony Stark since he basically was a domestic terrorist by creating Ultron. Like, how is he not in jail for creating Ultron?
And destroying city.
Yeah. And later in the movie, he's like, oh, who made Ultron? That was me. My bad. Like,
my bad.
It's
sorry,
not
guys.
my bad. You murdered thousands of people.
Well, I mean, that technically is what Civil War is all about. So,
yeah.
There you go. There's his comeuppance, a little spat with his super friends.
The super best friends.
Super best friends. League. But yeah, so the whole point of this is that the family gets back together. They all battle Dreykov, and
I hate the family.
Shenanigans. You hate the family? Yeah, let's talk a little bit about the dynamics between the family, because that's an important thing to talk about.
Because obviously, long story short, I'm sure you've seen it if you're listening to the spoiler thing, but yeah, they find out like, okay, we got to go stop the Black Widow guy, and they say, oh, we need to get our so-called dad, and then the dad's like, oh, you need to get your so-called mom, because she'll know how to get there, etc. So that's how we get here, and they're all at like the dining room table, and now we're supposed to be like, no, we were a family, no, you sold these children into slavery and made them murderers, and now because you guys are kind of funny, I'm supposed to be like, oh, you guys are great. Like, fuck off.
Yeah.
Fuck me sideways. Like, I understand that, like, Florence Pugh's character was very, very little when
Yeah.
she lost her parents, so she has that emotional attachment. She was not old enough to rationalize what was really happening the way Black Widow was. But I was with Black Widow, and she's like, no, suck my clit. Fucking eat my ass. You guys suck balls. You suck sideways balls.
Sideways balls.
Covered in, ginger pubes. Like,
I gotta
eat
say,
it.
John, I was not expecting this Black Widow thing to be so emotional.
But
leading to sucking clits and suck balls sideways. Didn't know that was coming,
Clits
but
and
I'm glad I'm here
boobs.
for it.
Clits and boobs.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I don't know. We're just supposed to automatically forgive these people for being.
I don't think you're supposed to automatically forgive them. I think you're supposed to understand kind of that everyone in that family is broken. Every one of them is broken.
There's a difference between daddy drinks too much and maybe mommy missed my baseball game to selling me into murderous slavery.
Right. That if you look at it from that point, yes, you're absolutely correct. And I would say that it's hard over the course of, say, one scene to go from that to we're all good now. But that's what they do in the film. In reality, it wouldn't work that way. I think what you see in this is a series of broken people. Melina, Rachel Weisz's character, is broken because of the fact that her research has been used to, I don't know, brainwash people. Okay? David Harbour, Alexei, is broken because everything that he believed led him to be thrown into jail. Okay? And thrown in, like, horrible conditions. And he's laughed at as a joke. Okay? Florence Pugh is broken because all she wanted was a family. And the only family she has is this broken-ass family. And Natasha's broken because of, obviously, her past and the fact that she does view this family as a broken entity. So I think that's the big thing here, and that big dynamics of this. But I agree that there's not nearly enough time given to how do we kind of fix this. It would be nice, again, this is a criticism that Marvel has always had, that they lead on the action, but not nearly enough on character development.
Well, no, we don't want the audience to think.
But it would be, I'm just saying, like, I think this could be fixed by maybe cutting down on the splody, and throwing maybe another scene or another day or something is explained, something happens that leads us to seeing that this family is more than just a series of broken people that hate each other.
You mean all the scenes that were left on the cutting room floor?
I imagine
the producer
so.
said there's not enough. Yeah, bang, bang, shoot, shoot. But
The producer said that.
Well, no, I'm saying that I'm sure that's what happened. No, I have no proof of it.
Yeah.
But the thing is, the mom seems proud of her mental control. She brings like a pig in and it's like, watch, I could stop it from breathing.
Yeah.
Like, she's an asshole. You know?
She is an asshole.
And by the way, I'm amazed that, like, I kind of got that Black Widow, okay, it's been years and years since she was indoctrinated into the Widow program. So she's had multiple years to kind of come to terms with what happened to her, but she's still troubled by it. And that makes her a very interesting character. Florence Pugh, like, instantaneously, like, and nobody can handle that level of shock, is automatically broken out of her mental lock and goes, whatever, I'm gonna be glib and funny and hoo-hoo ha-ha. It's like, no, you're just now realizing you spent 25 years as a killing machine against your will, and she's just fucking fine with it because it's a Marvel movie and we need to get going to the next action set piece.
Yeah. No, I get the criticism.
You see why I got problems with this?
I see exactly why you got problems with this. I honestly totally get it. I really do, and I think it's very warranted. This movie is again, it's starting at a negative standpoint in terms of this character. And it's like, how much up the rung can you improve this? Do you want to talk a little bit about things that are good with this movie, John? Do you want to go into some good territory?
Well, I will say this about them. While I do think that they're Marvel in a lot of cases, especially like, Krapnarok, is too...
Hey, no. No, that's where
I'm on an island. I'm on an island.
You are
No
on an
one's here
island.
with me. I am on an island with a shovel and maybe an umbrella if I'm lucky. There's
You've
nobody
got
else.
a volleyball that you've turned into a sex doll as well as a friend. The smiley face.
I've got a neck beard with a bubblegum crisis t-shirt on. It says, yeah, it's stupid. I'm with you. Do you know how to fish?
Do you know how to fish?
But, like, I did feel that when the humor was there, that it was good. Like, I mean, it was paced fairly well. The humor was there, and I do like Black Widow as a character, and I did like her sister. I really did not like the parents at all, but like I did, and obviously the action sequences are gonna be fantastic because it's a $200 million fucking budget. So I did find the film entertaining in a sense. If I shut my brain off, it was very entertaining.
I found the film entertaining. I'm not gonna lie and say that it wasn't. No, it is. It absolutely is an entertaining film. If you like Marvel shit, you will like this. I thought that Florence Pugh was probably the best part aside from Ray Winstone. I mean, Ray Winstone, the man is a master at playing the villain. He knows how to play a scene. And I found him to be very menacing when he was supposed to be menacing. And I mean, that's pretty much what you expect from him. He wasn't phoning it in. At least I didn't feel he was phoning it in.
But that's the problem with the tiny little fat old dude, is that like it falls into that Marvel issue of like, oh, there's no great villain. Like, say what you want about DC, they got like the Joker and Lex Luthor and all kinds of great villains. Like, yeah, it's like, there's no villain in this, like every other goddamn Marvel.
No,
movie.
there is a villain in this. He's the villain.
Yeah, but I mean, like, he's not really a threat. Like once she breaks her nose, which was stupid.
It's that part is kind of dumb. What you're talking about, John, is just the fact that, just as you said, Marvel has never really been known for their villains. They do not have the depth that DC has when it comes to their villains. However, I can't negate this. They've been better at executing their villains, though. Like, in terms of execution, how many Jokers are we up to now in DC land? The one good villain you had to be improved after the fact. Okay, Steppenwolf was improved in the Justice League cut. Okay, you got introduced to Darkseid in that cut, arguably the Thanos of the DCEU, and it's like you've got these great characters, these great villains, you don't fucking execute them well. Okay, Zod was okay. I guess.
I will find you. I will find you.
I mean, it's Michael Shannon. He always is kind of crazy.
You need to know where the codex are.
Yeah. I need to know where the codex. But I just can't get his face in that film.
Well, while you're giggling, I would say the problem with Marvel too is the three biggest franchises for memorable villains is Fantastic Four, X-Men, and Spider-Man. Yeah. And they barely own Spider-Man. They're sitting on X-Men and Fantastic Four. So, like, I don't remember. I mean, other than Red Skull, Captain America, I don't remember a single villain. I don't remember an Iron Man villain.
Remember that
Mandarin
Thanos guy, right?
Yeah.
Thanos.
Yeah.
I remember that Thanos guy.
He's more of like an overall villain. He's kind of the final boss, But
no, but you're right. I mean, it's their level of characters are not that deep when it comes to villains.
Well, you know what I think about is Batman Returns, like, because I think what they thought was, okay, after the Joker, and I mean this is debatable, but after the Joker, who's the biggest villain? They go, oh, the Penguin, and they go, oh, how's the Penguin gonna fight Batman? And he's like fat and small ass flippers. They go, and they go, what about if we put Catwoman in it too, and she can kick him in the face? And they go, bingo! Now we got ourselves a movie.
Well, what they did with that was said, well, what if the Penguin is Bruce Wayne who didn't have money, or had money but came from the same circumstances, but didn't have
Brian, you're
Thomas
speaking my language.
Wayne.
You're speaking it, but it's Max Schreck, Penguin, and Batman. They're all parallels to one another.
Yes.
And then you have Catwoman on the other end who never had anything. See, this is why I love Batman Returns, but we're not talking about Batman
We're not talking about that, and I won't go into the whole, bat signal on the shitter thing again. That's episode 1 territory, folks.
Episode 1,
yeah,
which I won't listen to. I can't even imagine. We're probably just like...
Well, it's you went through a Skype call, so it's not the best audio. But the point is that you're absolutely right. The villains in this film, Dreykov is probably the best one, okay? But Taskmaster is there.
And I thought I read tons of comics when I was a kid. Now, granted, I was Batman and Flash on the DC side mostly. I read the whole Doomsday thing, with Superman, but otherwise I wasn't into him. And I read on the Marvel end, Spider-Man, I read Hulk, and I read X-Men. Those were like my big ones. But I dabbled here and there. I got a couple of Captain America's, Iron Man's, blah, 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 blah. And I thought like, oh, I know so much about, Marvel characters and stuff. And then they're like, Taskmaster. I'm like, what the fuck? Just when I thought I had a handle on this as a big comic book nerd, I'm like, who the fuck is Taskmaster?
Well, I mean, the truth is, John, is like growing up, these characters were not the big ones. They weren't. They were not the big ones. It was X-Men. It was never the Avengers. I don't remember, saying, okay, I got to go get the next Avengers coming. No one was doing that. It was, X-Men. That was what it was. It was X-Men, Spider-Man, Fantastic Four a little bit, and then of all the DC stuff. At least for us growing up, like in the 90s, that's what it was. It was not really these characters. And I think that leads itself to a bigger thing of how Marvel, I mean, say what you want about them, they were able to take their B and C squad and promote them to the A squad.
Yeah.
And I don't think anyone knows how to do that. And I think that's the magic there, is how do you take your characters that are your leftovers? Because people don't like to remember that, is that back in the day, all they had was Iron Man and all these leftover characters that hadn't been sold to Sony and all these other studios like Fox that had the X-Men and, Sony had Spider-Man. This is what they had left. These were their bargain basement characters.
Oh, yeah, whatever they could buy. Yeah, and the thing is, if you told somebody, like, what did that come out in 2008? Iron Man?
2008 was Iron Man, yeah.
If you said 2007, we're going to base our entire Marvel Cinematic Universe around Iron Man, you'd be laughed out of the fucking room.
Because they really were the B and C squad. They just weren't. They just were not the top characters. Every other studio had those. So say what you will about this, and this kind of wraps around to Black Widow. No one would think in 2008 that you'd see a Black Widow movie, let alone an Avengers film, and multiple, and Loki getting his own fucking series. No one would think that. So there is a testament to that. Now, getting back to this film, I like Dreykov. I think the plot is extremely predictable. Florence Pugh, I thought, did a fantastic job. I kind of look forward to seeing what she's going to be doing as Black Widow, because in essence, this movie does set her up to be it, which is a shame for Scarlett Johansson.
Nobody ever dies. Nobody ever dies.
No one ever dies.
Replaced. They just get replaced.
Yeah.
Captain America gets replaced. Black Widow gets replaced.
Yeah.
No one's ever really gone. Just the actors that, were too expensive after a while.
Well, they just didn't want to do it anymore.
And the thing is, I didn't see the end credits because I just left the theater because I had to piss. And then I saw it like online.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, well, thank God that they shoehorned something in here for the future products. Because I thought to myself, this is clearly not a movie that the studio wanted to make, because this is the only time I really remember any Marvel movie not really setting up anything else.
Well, it wasn't really designed to. This was, again,
right, but all of the movies are designed to set up the next one. They all have been
checklists. I think we discussed this when we talked about Age of Ultron, that basically Marvel films are checklist movies. What things down our fandom checklist can we set up for the next film? When you watch, and I'm guilty of doing this, when you watch WandaVision or Loki or Captain America or Falcon and the Winter Soldier, you are literally looking for all the checklist items. What's going to set up the next one? Is this really Kang the Conqueror? That sort of thing. That's what these products do, is set up the checklist. So this one is an oddball because, one, it's a prequel, and then on top of that, it is not really setting up anything. But they do, at the end, throw that little nugget in there for you.
Yeah.
but
in this whole movie, I can't buy that, Black Widow died by throwing herself thousands of feet down onto a mountainside, because apparently nothing can kill her. She gets into 2 violently disturbing car crashes and just gets out and goes, meh.
It's a superhero movie, man. What are you going to expect?
She's not a superhero, though. There's one point where she falls like 20 stories and hits fucking metal 3 times on the way down and goes, I'm going to feel that in the morning.
You know what that reminds me of? So I was watching, I don't know if I mentioned this on the show yet. I was watching the movie Ice Road with Liam Neeson.
Oh.
I think I was telling you this at your birthday party, but there's a scene where the actor who played Abraham Lincoln in Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter, he's a bad guy, and Liam Neeson's truck, like his Mack truck, basically pushes his car down a mountain with him inside of it. Okay? This isn't a superhero movie. This is like a thriller. And no joke, this car that Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter is in basically does like 20 to 30 flips down the snowy mountain and is busted the fuck up. And this motherfucker literally gets out there and starts walking out. And he's all good. No problems. It depends. I'm going to be honest with you. It depends on the world that we're given in. The world of the film. Because a movie like that, it sticks out far more than it does in a movie with, I don't know, helicarriers, red jizz that turns people not into zombies, Russian ex-super soldiers. It's not as ridiculous. It really is. I think there is a lot of suspension of disbelief that happens when it comes to physics in a superhero film. Because you could say that about anything. Fucking Batman crashes his Batwing into Gotham Cathedral and gets out like it's no big deal.
All right. Well, here's the absolute horseshit answer I can give to you for that one. His suit.
Oh,
he's like a genius. He's a billionaire, and his suit is like keeping him safe.
Listen, I'm the poster child for saying this is the suit and it's Batman. But goddamn, his goddamn thing explodes, and he just gets out with no big deal. He's not injured.
I know. Well, I'm going to say, it didn't make sense then, and it doesn't make sense now. Yeah. But, and the thing is, okay, let's just briefly talk about the end of this movie. They decide to blow up Sky City, and...
They decided to blow up Sky City.
Sorry, or Cloud City. Sorry there, Lando. But they blew up your house. But, and the whole thing's coming down. And Black Widow, and I know she's a super soldier, but she falls like 5,000 fucking feet.
Yeah, I know.
And then lands on her, and goes, hey, I'm sorry, guy or chick who's been trying to kill me this whole time, but hey, I saved you. And hey, by the way, I'm going to put this little red jizz in your face. And she goes, hey, it's my dad. Is my dad dead? Because he really sucks. And she should have said, well, hey, remember, I'm the one that blew your fucking face off. But thanks for not wanting to kill me anymore. And she went, yeah, don't worry about it. And she meets up with her deadbeat family and was like, whoa, what wacky adventures we have. And like, yeah, when you don't sell me into slavery, what's next? I don't know. Let's get on this helicarrier and drink vodka and then go murder some more people. Like we did at the prison when there was an avalanche and we killed everyone and no one seemed to care. And
I was waiting for you to bring that up because that part is like, you literally did kill everyone in that fucking prison.
And she's like, yeah, you know what? I'm just going to go off. William Hurt's here, and I'm going to let him capture me. And they go, why? And she's like, Affinity War, assholes. And she's like, oh, here's my vest. And she goes, sweet, because I have this in the later movies. It won't make sense if I don't have it. Not like I could just buy one myself. And she goes, okay, hi, William Hurt. And then the next scene, she's just walking around well, that's over. Wait, you're an enemy of the state. How are you just walking around now? Who did you sell out? And then, what the fuck? What's a fucking mess of a movie?
I'm letting you roll, man. I'm letting you roll. I'm not going to say anything. I'm going to let him go because this is gold. This is fucking gold. Fucking gold, man. But you're right. You're right. I'm not going to sugarcoat it and say this is, how's it fit thing. No, this again was made to appease fans that were critical of this. This was made to appease them. Do I think it did that job? I don't know. Kinda, sorta, maybe. I really think that if this movie had come out after Civil War, I don't think it would be that big of a deal. I don't think it would hurt as much because we don't know what was going to happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's the problem, is that this is maybe 5 years too late. And that's not even counting the whole coronavirus thing delaying this. So, I'm glad this movie's out there. Does it add anything? Not really. It just fleshes out a single line from Loki in Avengers Endgame. Or not Endgame, but just the first Avengers. So it's
we're going to get a Black Widow's show on Disney Plus.
Probably.
And by the way, she's Black Widow. Does that mean it's kind of like Reservoir Dogs? Is there like Green Widow and Pink Widow?
No.
And Blue Widow?
They're all Black Widows.
Well, that kind of defeats her name then, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does kind of.
It'd be like if I called myself, I am Pittsburgh Penguin.
You're Pittsburgh.
Wait a minute.
Wait a minute. You can't be the Pittsburgh Penguin.
Yeah, sure I can.
Sure I can. Yeah. Look at my ice powers.
Yeah.
And pierogi powers.
Yeah.
And
here's my powers. Iron City Blast.
Iron City Blast. I don't want to know what that means.
Heyo.
But yeah, this movie, it's not terrible. It's entertaining. But I really do think that this is, it's not fair to the character. It's not fair to Scarlett Johansson. I gotta think that if I'm her, I'm probably really pissed off that it took me this long to get my own solo film where you've already got characters that don't have nearly as much depth of character in the source material and already are on their fourth film.
Well, here's where I think she's sleeping shows. Easy.
Why do you, money?
Well, yeah, because when I was watching the opening credits, they said executive producer Scarlett Johansson.
There you go.
Cha-ching.
There you go.
She's like, yeah, I don't care what you do to my character. I'm in the money.
Yeah.
I'm in the money. Yeah.
Although this movie is the first Marvel film that has tanked its second week.
That's pandemic shit for you.
I don't know about that.
The only movie that's done well in the pandemic is Fast 9, because apparently you cannot kill Fast and the Furious.
I wish you could.
Me too.
I really do. It's all about the family. No, it's not.
I watched 24 hours of those fucking movies. I have PTSD. They just come in flashes.
Far better person than me, because I won't subject myself to that. Yeah. But I think if I'm the executive producer of this, if I'm Scarlett Johansson too, I would be pissed because of the fact that it dropped like that. You could say the pandemic, yes. I also do think that word of mouth has an issue as well. I think that people saw this film and said, "Yeah, it's kind of the typical fare, kind of the template."
Yeah.
But I don't think it's really doing anything new. It's not as groundbreaking as those Disney Plus shows, Yeah. And that's part of the problem, is that those Disney Plus shows really are filling the void that was left when the pandemic happened and we didn't have these movies come. So now the water cooler talk isn't about Avengers Endgame or the next Marvel film. It's, did you catch Loki last night? You know what I mean? And that's where the creativity is. And that's the thing. I think that's the final point I want to make on this, is that you watch this movie and you're just like, it seems like I've seen the same thing over again compared to those Disney Plus shows that are actually doing something new. I don't think anyone could take that away from Marvel, by the way. The fact that those shows that no one thought was going to be successful, I sure as hell didn't think they were going to be successful, have blown the fuck up.
Yeah.
Well, even Falcon and Winter Soldier, which I'd say is probably the least successful of all three of them, is still leaps and bounds.
Which is probably actually the best if you think about it, but
yeah,
I'll defend that another day. But the thing is, I would wait to see, because this is a different world, on exactly how much money Black Widow makes domestically, not worldwide, because that could be anything. But because I do believe that there were a lot of people that didn't go to the movies before the pandemic, who waited for something to come out, on DVD, Blu-ray, streaming, what have you, and they saw it then. And I wonder if there are many people who were like, oh, we have Disney Plus. It's going to cost us $20. Like, but hey,
no,
whenever,
$30
or $30. Okay,
yeah,
Honey,
it's 30.
Yeah. Whenever we have a night together, like when we're, we'll watch it, we'll just watch it at home. I think that it's far from done on the Disney streaming end of things. The theater numbers may continue to drop, but I bet the Disney streaming numbers will stay fairly steady. I'd be very interested to watch that charting and just, because I don't think this film is done anywhere at this point in streaming. Yeah, theaters, it's probably just going to keep taking a nosedive, but we'll see.
I'd be curious to see how it plays against other films that are coming. Like, I think what's coming up next is Snake Eyes and...
Oh, well, no, actually, I have those numbers. I saw Old, the new M. Shamalama Bing Bong. I saw that movie, by the way. That's number one, and Snake Eyes is number 2, and then Black Widow is number 3. I feel like I'm forgetting something. That's
not
in there.
so terrible.
Oh, no. I'm sorry. Space Jam is number 2. Snake Eyes is number 3, and now Black Widow is number 4.
Okay, that's bad.
At the box office. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry. If Space Jam beat you out, that's a story for another day, right, John?
Yeah. A very, very certain day coming up soon.
Day.
Here's my quick spoiler review of it. There you go.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. Is that going to have to be one of our rare new releases that's a pantheon of utter shit?
Oh, yeah. Okay. I'll happily put it in there right now.
Because I think from all I've seen so far, I've yet to see it. I don't want to watch it, even though I have HBO Max. But at the same time, I don't want to subject myself to it. But I have a feeling it might be our first newer film that is solely in the pantheon of utter shit.
I was watching it. I was like, blue tit, fuck me, Happy roller skating, tap dancing Mother Mary and Joseph of Christ.
God.
What in the titty mongrel am I watching?
Oh, man. Well, with that said, John, do you want to give us a final thought on Black Widow? I kind of give mine already, so.
Yeah, here's my quickest synopsis ever. Iron Man 3, Captain Marvel, Doctor Strange. That's where this movie lies. In that little, it's not terrible, it's not Dark World or Iron Man 2, but it's not great. It's just floating in that Marvel ether of, you'll forget this after a year.
Yeah. I kind of tend to agree with you on that. I think it's an entertaining film. Don't take that away from this movie. This is an entertaining film. I think everyone involved with it did their best. But I really think that when you're starting off 6 feet in the dirt and you've got a bunch of movies where the character's been nothing but a fucking sex object, it's kind of hard to dig yourself out that hole. And that's, I think, the problem this movie has. Maybe if this movie came out 5 years ago, we'd be talking a different story. But that's its biggest problem, is that I think this movie was made to appease rather than made for creative purposes and made to pursue the character.
Well, 5 years ago, Marvel might have been the hottest they were, like right around Civil War.
That's what I'm saying. This could have come out right after Civil War and would have been perfect. It would have filled that gap of time between the Civil War and Infinity War. And you could have had all the other shit come out too. Because you had like Guardians of the Galaxy come out at the same time. That's taking place in a whole other different world. You could have done, this could have come out.
Yeah, exactly.
But they didn't. They chose not to. So we're left with basically a, here you go, don't call us sexist anymore film. And I hate that that's the case, because it really does a disservice to the character. It does a disservice to Scarlett Johansson, who's done a lot with this character over, 17 fucking films? So yeah, that's kind of my final thoughts on it.
419 of them.
Just
Wait,
throwing
no,
numbers out.
I'm sorry. 418. I had to redo my math.
Gotcha. Well, with that said, John, where can they find you at on the Twitter machine? Or wherever on social, by the way. If you use Twitter, don't use Twitter anymore. What are you using for social? I should probably ask you that question.
Yeah. I don't know. I still use it. I can say you can find me in the Red Room. The Unreal J Wolves on Twitter, but I'm also check out J Dubs Video Nasties on YouTube.
Yeah.
I find that there's two schools of people. There's a very few in between that like both my interviews and my potty mouth videos. But there's some people that like the potty mouth stuff. There's some people that like the interviews. There's a little something there for everybody.
I really like the potty mouth videos. I'm being honest with you. I love the potty mouth videos. The one you did on Rookie of the Year, I cracked the fuck up on. But yeah, check out J Dubs Video Nasties. Also check out, I mentioned this on our live that live thing I did I think it was 2 weeks ago. So, as most of you probably know now, Lane is back in some capacity. We're doing a new type of show. This is strictly about streaming TV shows. Okay, strictly about streaming TV shows. Some streaming movies. Some movies that maybe are like not quite fitting in what we do here. Okay, and it's called From the Concession Stand. First episode's already out. It's about Loki. I was surprised that we actually were accurate in our prediction because we recorded this about, 4 weeks earlier, and we were right smack dab on the money. So if you haven't yet checked it out, go to youtube.com/Psycho Show. That's our YouTube channel. We have one, surprisingly. Subscribe to it and check out From the Concession Stand. It's a video type of show, but it also is an audio podcast too. So if you love listening to us through audio, don't worry, we put in an audio only version as well, and that's going to kind of come up in between episodes when we're kind of on off weeks and things like that. So keep an eye out for that. From the Concession Stand, strictly talking about TV and streaming stuff, which we really don't do a whole lot on this podcast here.
Yeah, but, and I love like going to podcasts on YouTube. I don't know why, maybe because I'm an old man. But like, yeah, if you're gonna get our podcast on YouTube and you're gonna get like actual live video, and talk about streaming stuff, which we've always talked about doing.
We've always talked about. We never really gone too much depth though.
Yeah. So check that out, and hey, like and subscribe, hit that bell, smash that like button, and all that fucking shit. Do that though. Actually,
do
subscribe.
All the things. If
you listen to us on YouTube, subscribe, please. Can only help us.
Yeah. With that said, also be sure to like us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Psycho Show. You can also find us on the Epicast Network at epicastnetwork.com. If you have a favorite movie or question you want to throw our way, be sure to contact us at cinemapsychoshow.com and subscribe and follow us wherever you listen to audio, and we will see you next time.
What do you call a Marvel fart? A Florence Pugh.
Oh, that's nasty.
Epicast.